I mean,
and
keep in mind as
and
well
it
that
doesn't.
that Crime Watch UK was also broadcast on the BBC, where you know
Yeah.
they're at the centre of all of this, which is pinnacle to this theory.
Well, and again, how many people, when Savile came on, would say he looks like a nonce on the telly with Jim will fix it? But that aside, how many people, when Savile come on, have been sexually abused by him and would have actually screamed the house down, turn that terrifying telly off and everything else? There would have been loads of them, but no one would have believed them. But when it come out, it went into the thousands. That it done, not a couple, not a dozen, thousands. And we see this all the time. We see this with Lord Janner. Again, anyone who spoke about him being they were threatened with lawsuits by his barrister son and everything else. And of course, post his death, the independent government sanctioned IICSA inquiry had a whole strand on him alone. So it does come out later. So there would have been a lot of information. Now she might have had a lot of information, not only what was given to her as a result of her job as a presenter on this highly popular crime program, but also what she experienced working in that environment as well. And I would have thought colleagues would be very comfortable talking to her. Maybe colleagues came to her and said, "Look, that Jimmy Savile and others, right?" Bear in mind, she did mention one other celebrity, said that he's not the Christian man you think he is. And again, it's someone who claims to be a very committed Christian. And there was a comment made about that. Maybe they've given her information there, and
Yeah,
that would have made her hot property. And as we all know, us that do whistleblow,
yeah,
the first thing they do is they try and silence you by
yeah,
threatening you. When that doesn't work, they ultimately they kill you,
yeah,
or they imprison you, or they section you. So
yeah,
either way, it's going to be a painful journey for you.
yeah,
And maybe what she had, and she might have had her inner conscience telling her, no, you can't let this lie.
yeah,
We don't know, but to stitch up, and they did stitch him up. That guy, Bo George, was despicable. Look at the parallels between that and the Rachel Nickel thing as well. What they do with Colin Stagg, it's the same thing. They get the detectives in and they basically tell them, look, this man's done it. We
yeah,
we want a conviction. And
yeah,
A former police detective who exposed Jimmy Savile believes that Jill Dando was assassinated because of her work on the BBC series Crime Watch. Mark Williams Thomas, who now works as a TV investigator, said in an exclusive interview with the Daily Mirror that she died at the orders of a Mr. Big to warn off others from probing a crime clan. He said, "My theory is that Jill was gunned down on the orders of a London underworld Mr. Big to send out a direct, bloody message to others, do not take on organized crime." Mr. Williams Thomas found an intelligence report naming two men from Islington, North London, who were said to be acting for one of the capital's biggest crime families after examined more than 52,000 documents in the Dando files. He said, it suggested Jill was being targeted for investigating crime on television. The report goes on to detail how after shooting her the men disposed of the murder weapon in a canal on their home turf. But the lead detective on the Dando case, DCI Hamish Campbell, ordered no further action on the report as the prime suspect Barry George had already been charged. A memo submitted to detectives names a registered source who was at the time serving life for murder. An officer who went to quiz him in prison on February 1, 2001, came back with the two men's names, which cannot be revealed for legal reasons. The intelligence report goes on to say the gun was broken into 4 pieces, which were thrown into a canal in Islington. One of the men was later identified, but detectives found no apparent link to the crime family. The other was seemingly never found. Mr. Williams Thomas said, "Whoever was to blame for killing Jill, it is my strong belief there is one key reason why they were allowed to slip through the net of the biggest police manhunt since the Yorkshire Ripper. The 47 detectives in the Kensington incident room had become too focused on nailing George, Jill's loner neighbor. He was jailed for murder in July 2001 but freed in 2008 after a retrial. So Jill may have signed her own death warrant through her work on Crime Watch. Every month she, Nick Ross and their team helped bring villains to justice through the show, which attracted 9 million viewers. There are several reasons why I'm convinced a contract killer shot Jill. First, she was shot with a single bullet to the head, which indicates they were well trained enough to know that would be enough. I believe the gunman considered taking lives to be all in a day's work and was paid handsomely. He also got a buzz from pulling off the perfect murder. A second major factor which supports the hitman theory is the fact that on a busy London street in broad daylight, no one saw the shooting or could even say for sure they had seen him. He just slipped away. Third, he vanished without a trace of DNA or any other evidence, bar the bullet. During my research, the respected criminologist David Wilson told me, everything about this murder screams out professional hit. It has all the hallmarks. I have explored many other theories, including a Serbian hit, an IRA revenge killing and a maniac who sent a letter threatening to kidnap and rape Jill and colleague Alice Beer just a month before her death. But the most compelling motive is the Crime Watch link. I will pass my findings from the DANDO files to Scotland Yard and urge them to start a fresh investigation.
This evening, the television presenter Jill Dando has been murdered outside her home in West London. She'd once said that she feared her job as a presenter of the Crime Watch program may have made her a potential target herself.
Speculation that the killing may have been revenge for her anti-crime work.
To be honest with you, John, this is one of those cases. There's so many cases like this that have this, like, haunting era or haunting sort of element of conspiracy and cover-up. This case is one of those ones that if you guys want to hear more theories on this, or you would like maybe a longer video where we dive into the Savile side of things a little bit more deeply, we can arrange to do that. So let us know in the comments. But
there's been quite a few where they've had this. If you look at the disappearance of Susie Lamplugh in a very similar part of London, only a couple of miles away. I think she went missing from Chiswick or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And again, very strange affair that was, and a very bizarre investigation.
Yeah.
And no one was ever convicted of it, and I don't think she was ever found either. But the Rachel Nickell one is really, really interesting. Well, and this shows how the real arrogance of when the police get their targets, just what they say is the mind's like a parachute.
Yeah.
It only works when it's open, and it's a very closed-minded approach.
Yeah.
And they arrested this guy Colin Stagg, and there was an entrapment case. It was an adjunct provocateur and some highly unlawful. Well, the thing is with this, because my point on this one is that it's the way these murder teams work and the pressure that is put on them, and how for whatever reasons, whether they're fair or foul, that the wrong decision is made and they stick to it and they don't relent. Now, Rachel Nickell was actually murdered by a guy called Robert Napper. And Robert Napper had actually murdered a woman, I think called Samantha Blissett, in Plumstead in southeast London. And he'd actually, after murdering Samantha and her young daughter, horrific injuries, I think he sliced them both up. He actually went into a police station and, he told his mum, look, I've killed a girl and I've killed someone else. And he actually went into a police station and said, look, I think I've killed a woman somewhere. And they thought he was a nutcase and told him to F off. And the similarities between Samantha Blissett and Rachel Nickell and the murders, even how they look, were quite striking. And geographically, they weren't that far apart either. And bear in mind, this guy, he even proffered himself up as being the suspect, and he just wasn't believed. And then they went on this highly expensive, highly unlawful agent provocateur entrapment honey trap operation in which they used a level 1 covert undercover UC woman to basically groom a confession or half a confession out of Colin Stagg, who didn't seem to be the full ticket either. And when they did a program, this is before Stagg actually ended up getting compensation, and Napa eventually was convicted of it. There was a program about the investigation, and they interviewed the senior investigating officer, DCI Somerset, I can't even remember his name, and he made this totally bold yet arrogant statement that no matter what happens, we will never be looking for another suspect.